Hello sports fans, and welcome back to another edition of the Pioneers Weekly Football Preview, where we take a look at this week's big high school, college, and professional football games. We're going to get things started in the high school ranks this week, where Crossroads travels to Baldwin with the Top Cat trophy on the line. You can throw the records out the book when this one is on the schedule. Looking at this matchup, Bob, coming into this game, Crossroads coming off of a forfeit the previous week. Is that going to play a factor into this week's matchup, and who do you see coming out on top?
Crossroads is going to be facing an uphill battle this week. You know, they didn't play last week. They did get a chance to heal some of the injuries, but they're just going to be facing an uphill battle with only 13 kids, maybe 14. And Baldwin is just going to have too many athletes on the field, and I think this is going to be a relatively easy win. Much like the series, no one is really... Yeah, all the games in the series have been blowouts, and it's going to be the same. Baldwin will win easily.
Brandon, talk a little bit about Baldwin's temperament heading into this game. They've got 4 wins already this year. Talk about the importance of winning this game, though, against a team like Crossroads, a rival for the last 5 seasons.
As in any rivalry, you can just throw the records out and pretty much go from there. But with how Crossroads is coming back this week with 13, 14 guys, Baldwin's going to be amped up and ready to go. Aiden Ware's going to go off for like 250 yards on the ground. It's just going to be ridiculous. But this will be a good stepping stone for next week when they do clinch a playoff spot.
Yeah, Baldwin's going to continue to put up the numbers offensively. I do think Crossroads has a chance to score some points and get a little bit of confidence out of a game like this in a rivalry game. But I do think Baldwin has much too much athleticism. Ware will have success running outside of the tackles. I predict Baldwin to win this one big as well. Our next game, looking at Everett, is going to be traveling to Lake City after a huge 34-0 win last week against McBain. Everett has now positioned itself to earn a playoff spot with that big win last week. They take on Lake City, another top team in the Highland Conference. But this is looking like a much more winnable game for Everett, who has shocked a lot of people with last week's results, including all of us who picked against the Wildcats unwisely. Bob, can you talk about whether they have a chance this week against the Lake City team that has had a lot of success the last couple of years?
A couple of weeks ago, Everett played Beale City, and Beale City got the victory. And Coach Craven, I talked to him afterwards, he says, you know, we were in that game. And I kind of took that as, you know, coach speak, you know, trying to make his kids feel better. And then you get last week where they just dominated McBain. Maybe Craven wasn't, you know, just spouting that, you know, making his team feel good. You're right, Marty. I think this is a different Everett team. I think Everett goes into Lake City and gets the win. I would not have thought that at the beginning of the year, but I think this is Everett's 6th win. They're going to get into the playoffs and continue on their roll.
Brandon, how important is this game for Everett in terms of building confidence and like you said, trying to get into the postseason? And who do you have winning this week?
A victory this week for Everett would be huge for them, especially going into the playoffs and clinching that spot. I believe that the Everett Wildcats are starting to really believe that they are the second best team in the Highland, and the results on the field are showing the same. I think Everett can actually go into Lake City and pull out a squeaker.
Well, Lake City is one team that has given Everett a lot of problems the last few years. They have not matched up well against Lake City. This is a different year though for Everett. I think they go in, show a lot of improvement this week against Lake City. I do have them coming up short. This team is going to the playoffs, but they won't clinch the spot this week. I've got Lake City winning by a touchdown. Looking at our next game on the schedule in CSAA action, we have MorleyStanwood traveling to Chippewa Hills. Both teams coming off tough losses last week. Chippewa Hills falling to Reed City and MorleyStanwood falling to Big Rapids, 2 of the top teams in the CSAA. So looking at this week's game, Bob, what is on the line for both of these teams, MorleyStanwood and Chippewa Hills, looking ahead to the final 3 weeks of the season?
What's on the line is one word, and that's playoffs. MorleyStanwood would have an outside shot at 5-4 making the playoffs if they can run the table. They'll have a victory over Central Montcalm. If they win Friday, they get a victory over Chippewa Hills, 2 bigger schools, and that will help their playoff points. So the playoffs are not out of the question, though they'll be very slim. And Chippewa Hills has to run the table. They got to win the next 3, and they got to play like it. They got to play with that urgency that I didn't see last week against Reed City. I think Chippewa Hills comes out with the victory. I'll say like two touchdowns.
Brandon, we've seen time and time again this year the Chippewa Hills offense is one of the best in the area. What do they need to do to get things back on track after really struggling against Reed City last week? And who do you have winning this matchup?
They need to do what they've done all year when their offense has been successful, and that's go to their stars. Trent Carter, you need to get him involved in the pass game. 1 catch for 21 yards last week, that's not going to cut it. If you want to be a playoff team, you have to go to your stars, and they have to come up big. I do see Chippewa Hills coming out on this one by 2 scores, but this is the opening week of the playoffs for Chippewa Hills.
Very important game for both of these teams, but for Chippewa Hills, I think the biggest thing is getting that offense back on track. It's going to be tough against a Morley-Stanwood team that has done a good job in spurts playing defense this year. They held Big Rapids to 6 points in the first half last week. They held Reed City in check for a half. So Morley-Stanwood is no slouch, but defensively, I don't think they have enough offensive firepower to keep up with Chippewa Hills, though. I've got Chippewa Hills winning by about 3 scores. Our final game that we're going to look at this week is the Anchorbone Classic. In the college ranks, we have Ferris State traveling to Grand Valley State for the annual showdown. Ferris State is coming off a heartbreaking loss last weekend against Saginaw Valley, in which they gave the ball away in the final minutes of regulation and then lost the game in overtime. It's going to be tough for them to lick their wounds coming into this week's game against the number 3 team in the country in Grand Valley State. Looking at this matchup, Bob, Grand Valley State obviously shows a lot of firepower on offense and very solid on defense. Does Ferris State have a chance to come into Lover Stadium and pull off an upset?
I think the one thing we have seen from Grand Valley this year is what you said, is they can put up a lot of points. They put up 80-something on Notre Dame. They put up 53 or 52 on Michigan Tech last week. But they also give up a lot of points. They gave up 49 to 48 to Notre Dame. They gave up 43 to Tech. And so I think this is going to be a high-scoring game and kind of one of those games where the team who has the ball last will win. I'm going to pick the home team in this one, and I'll say like a 49-47 kind of game.
Brandon, it's been a decade since Ferris State has beaten Grand Valley State. Can you talk about if there is a mental block with the Bulldogs right now heading into a game like this where, you know, their lack of success in the past is kind of has that in their head against a team like Grand Valley. What do they have to do to get over that, and who do you have winning this weekend?
As with any rivalry game, like I said before, you can throw the records out. It's a rivalry game. I think going back a couple years, that does play a mind in some of those upperclassmen, but I think with a new offense system, new coach, and kind of a renewed spirit over there on campus, you're going to see Ferris come out and compete. It's going to be high scoring, just like Bob said. But I see Grand Valley pulling away late.
Ferris State's key in this game is going to be taking care of the football. They turned the ball over 4 times last week against Saginaw Valley at critical times in the game. Here's a statistic for you to keep in mind going into this weekend's game. Grand Valley State ranks 15th in the conference against the run, and Ferris State is ranked number 1 in the conference in rushing production on offense. So I think Ferris State is definitely going to try to pound the ball on the ground. If they can keep in it early, I think they have a chance to pull off an upset. I don't think they're at this point yet against a more talented Grand Valley State team. I have Grand Valley State winning 27-20. Our final segment of the week, we take a look at our game ball picks for the week. That's an award that goes out to our most outstanding high school performances from the past weekend. Bob, get us started here and tell us who your game ball recipient is for this week.
My game ball goes to Everett and to the hands of John Danley. He rushed for 124 yards and 3 touchdowns and leading the Wildcats to a 34-0 win over the Ramblers. And on defense, he had 10 stops, second most on the team. Congratulations, Danley.
Brandon, who was your most outstanding high school player of the week?
My game ball goes this week up, old 131 to Reed City. And that Reed City defense that had 2 defensive touchdowns against Chippewa Hills in their quest for 2 straight undefeated seasons. Good job, boys.
My game ball this week is going to go to a guy whose number we've called many times this year, and that is Big Rapids running back Nick Baldwin, who had another 200-yard game on the ground en route to his team's 39-7 win over MorleyStanwood on homecoming. Baldwin's a big reason why Big Rapids will be heading back to the playoffs this year, and they're 5-1 this season. So congratulations to you, Nick. And that's going to do it for this week's edition of the Pioneer Weekly Football Preview. As always, make sure to check out BigRapidsNews.com for results from all the games, or check out the weekend edition of the Pioneer.